Hi, I'm Richard Sharp, and today we're going to be going over how to do the back squat. Now, the back squat is probably one of the most common exercises. Everybody knows of it, everybody's seen it done, and it's honestly just a staple of pretty much any sports program, any strength training program, whether you're lifting for strength, whether you're lifting for hypertrophy, whether you're lifting for performance, you're going to be interacting with the back squat or some sort of squat, but the back squat is by far the most common out of all the variations. And so there's a lot of reasons for this. For one, it really targets a little bit of every muscle group in your legs above the knee. I mean, you're getting a little bit of everything. So you've got your quads, you've got your vastus lateralis, your vastus medialis, your vastus intermedius, and then your rectus femoris as well. And then you've got your hamstrings with your bicep femoris, your semimembranosus and semitendinosus, and then you've also got your gluteus maximus and your glutes as well. So all of this is getting worked in a back squat, and then there are different little things you can do within the back squat to target different of those muscle groups more specifically. But any kind of back squat, if you're doing it correctly, will to some extent engage all of those. So any athlete, no matter what sport it is going to benefit from a back squat immensely, because you have explosiveness just with a jump, you have speed coming from your glutes, hamstrings, quads, like any kind of running, any kind of jumping, things that every sport does is going to use a back squat. And so just to get started, there are two ways really you can hold the bar in a back squat. Both of them are going to be overhand closed grips, but you can do a common width grip and do a high bar squat, and that what you're going to do there is you're going to rest the bar on your traps. And so you want to make sure the thing you're going to avoid is not to let the bar sit on your neck. That's going to cause injury, but you want it to be on those trap muscles kind of sitting up. The other way you can hold the bar for a back squat is you can get a wide grip, still overhand and closed, and you can do a low bar squat. And so that there, the bar's going to be sitting pretty much right on the top of the shoulder blades, at the very top of the back, lower part of the shoulders. And so with taller athletes, they might benefit a little bit more from a low bar squat. It allows you to hinge more. If you have less flexibility in those hamstrings, it allows you to get a little bit more of a hinge in that squat and get a little bit lower. Just for the sake of there being no weight on the bar, I'm going to do a low bar squat because it allows me at least to get a little bit lower without falling backwards. But when there's weight, I typically do a high bar squat. Before your back squat, you're going to get in position, and you're going to want your feet to be about shoulder width apart and not facing directly in front of you, facing just a little bit out, not too much. You don't want to get a bad foot like this, but it'll help to have a little bit of angle in those feet, and you're going to want them about shoulder width apart. Now, what's key in a back squat and really any kind of lower leg exercise where your feet are on the ground, you have to remember that's where your force is coming from, is from your feet. So you want to make sure at all times your entire foot is on the ground, your entire foot is flat on the ground, so that you're not having any kind of roll either way, because the less surface area you're connecting with on the ground, the less force you're going to be able to get, because that's where your force is coming from. So less ground contact, less force. And so it's huge to make sure your feet stay flat on the ground, and that's why a lot of people, like I'm wearing today, like to use Vans or Converse, those types of shoes, because they have completely flat soles. They're really sturdy soles, and they allow you to get a good flat grip on the ground. And so a good way to try to do that is to try to like paw the ground. Like imagine your feet are like your hands, and you're like gripping the ground like this with your toes and the ball of your feet. And that's a good way to try to force yourself to keep a little bit of tension in that ground and tear it apart. You want to pretty much through the entire squat, you want to try to be pushing your feet out. Like you can see the little bit of angle in my feet, my knees and my feet are going to be pushing that way into the ground throughout the entire time. This one creates a constant tension so that I'm still getting force from the ground, but it also helps in avoiding any kind of knee valgus when I'm coming up in my squat. And so what I mean by that is when you go down in your squat and you're coming up, you want to push your knees out with your feet so you don't get any kind of valgus. When your knees go in, there's a big risk for injury, and you don't want that to happen. And so what you're going to do is you're going to get in your starting position. Like I said, I'm in a low bar squat, so I've got my arms a little bit wider, the bar a little bit lower. And you're going to start with a hip hinge. As I've said before, think about kind of bowing, right? You're not just going straight down. You have to push back a little bit so that you can keep that center of gravity all over your feet. When you're going straight down, that bar is going to get behind your feet. you're going to be a little bit more susceptible to falling back and just not a good squat form. And so you want to get a hip hinge, and you want to try to keep that bar path as straight as you can over your feet. And so all you're going to do is just go straight down, and ideally you can get below parallel. I'm not quite there. You want to keep your back straight the whole time. You want to keep your head neutral, and then come back up. And so once again, with weight, it's a little bit easier to get to the depth that I would like to go, but ideally you want to go, if you were doing any kind of competition, to where the crease of your hip is going to go below the top of your knee. That's below parallel. Not all athletes are able to do that. If you can get to parallel, that is fine, but you want to get about as low as you can go while keeping your back completely straight. You want to look and avoid any kind of arch in the back. You want to avoid any kind of valgus in the knees. You want to avoid rolling your feet at all, or any kind of pelvic tilt, meaning you're kind of like tilting your pelvis as you go down. A lot of people do that. So you want to keep everything very straight, everything neutral with your head as well. And then I'll go one more time. Down. You see this low bar grip allows me to lean forward more so I can get a lower squat. Get all the way below parallel, and then come back up. Keeping your back straight, head neutral, leaning forward, and then coming straight back up. And so that is the basic premise of the back squat. Once again, there are different things you can do, different ways to do it, but getting that maximum depth is the way that you're going to target the most muscles the best. The lower you go, the more you're going to engage those glutes and those hamstrings. If you're not going as low, you're really only going to get mostly quads, and in some situations you might want to adjust the squat for that, but you want to make sure an athlete is able to go below parallel. If they can't, lower the weight, adjust what you need to do to begin to work on that flexibility in the hips and the knees and whatever needs to be adjusted. And so that's the back squat. Thank you.